Hi, I'm Heather Smith and welcome to the Accounting Apps podcast, exploring the accounting and business apps community. Stay up to date with the curated content I'm sharing by signing up to the Accounting Apps newsletter, available at heathersmithau.com, and joining the Accounting Apps Mastermind group. Today I've got something exciting to share with you. You know how you get excited when a lost Beatle or Nirvana track is found? Well, the extraordinary Alexi Boyd uncovered the audio of a panel discussion from the Sydney Xerocon PreXerocon 2023. I honestly thought I'd never hear it again, and then mid-March she sent me a copy, making me a very happy podcaster because I get to share it with you. The panel discussion was held at the beautiful Hinchcliff House at Circular Quay. Unfortunately, the room was a little noisy on the day of the event. However, much to my surprise, the audio quality is relatively quite good. So you are absolutely in for a technology treat. The topic for discussion was Unravelling the Future of AccounTech, moderated by Alexi Boyd. If you're a regular listener, you'll know I value bringing diversity to these tech conversations. So the moderator, Alexi Boyd, ran a BAS and Bookkeeping business for 8 years. She's the radio host of Small Biz Matters. I encourage you to go and subscribe to it. And now works in policy strategy and government relations. This led her to take the conversation in quite an interesting direction, touching on consumer data rights, restriction on data, innovation, and the differences between data protection laws in Europe, UK and Australia. This event was the first time Sabby Gill, the new Dext, formerly Receipt Bank CEO, had spoken in Australia. He'd literally got off the plane. So he brought his overseas perspective, and as well as his 35 years in the UK technology sector. Ali Garrett is a modern tech-savvy accountant from South Australia. So she was representing the accountants, their small business clients, and living outside one of the major Australian cities. She brought that regional perspective to the conversation, which was really important. Roger Gregg brought that unique energy that comes with being a fintech founder. He also brought his extensive knowledge of the hospitality and brewing industry, which certainly flavoured the conversation. And the establishment where we were having the discussion, Hinchcliff House, is one of the ones that he oversees. And it's a beautiful establishment. If you are ever in Sydney, I encourage you to go there. On the first level, the ground level, is a lovely Italian restaurant, my husband's favourite Italian restaurant. So I'll add some recent relevant news. Congratulations are in order. 10 months after recording this, it's just been announced that the Access Group has entered into an agreement to acquire pioneering AP automation provider Lightyear, which is the company that Roger Gregg and his brother Chris Gregg founded. So let me fill you in on a bit of a backstory. The Gregg brothers were one of the original app partners with their solution in VipBox. I'm thinking maybe they were within the first 10 of app partners that sort of came into the ecosystem. In VipBox won Xero Emerging App Partner in 2013. Then in May 2014, Intuit acquired in VipBox. The very blue boys turned green overnight. Several years later, in quite an unprecedented move, they bought InVipBox back from Intuit for $1 and relaunched it as Lightyear because apparently people kept thinking it was InVitebox and not InVipBox. So here we are 10 years later, and they've sold it again, this time to the Access Group. I'll talk more about that in the separate technology update podcast, but I did want to share that story with you before I pass over to Alexi Boyd introducing the panel discussion.
So today's panel I'm super excited about. We are talking a little bit about AI. We're talking about the future of the account tech industry, and AI, digitisation, all of those things really affect everyone in this room. So we're going to hear from some leaders today, which we're really excited about because they can see into the future. They've used AI in their product and services, in their software development. But more importantly, we're also going to be hearing from people at the coalface of what this means for running a small business. So it's going to be a great afternoon. Please welcome me. Let's talk about who we've got coming up. Roger Gregg, come up, please. He's a seasoned professional with a diverse background in management, accounting, manufacturing, retail, fintech and hospitality. Moved to Australia in 2007. Was recruited by the Director of Operations for Keystone Hospitality, taking to the group to win the prestigious Australian Group Operator of the Year Award in 2009 and 2010. It was then that he saw and felt the need for accounts payable automation, and in 2011 he co-founded the accounts payable tech startup Invitebox with his brother Chris. Despite neither of them having any tech experience, is it Invitebox or Invitebox?
It was Invitebox, but that's why we changed the name. That's it.
Right, yeah, okay. Invitebox was awarded Xero's Emerging App of the Year in 2013, just prior to being acquired by Intuit in 2014. Built upon the previous success, otherwise known as recognising that you're one-trick ponies, they founded Lightyear in 2018, continued a mission of solving accounts payable headaches, and the company operates both domestically and internationally with a staff of 60 offices in Belfast and Sydney, servicing 6,000 businesses across 22 countries. In addition to Lightyear, Roger is involved in a number of hospitality businesses, one you may know of intimately now, as a partner in Housemate Hospitality, as well as helping Bondi Brewing Company take it to the big guys. Welcome, Roger.
Thanks. Sorry, Heather asked me to say, could you just keep it down at the back of the room? She didn't have the nerve to say that herself, so I put my big boy pants on. Just keep it down. Thank you.
Community Radio thanks you as well, by the way. Ali Garrett is a multi-award-winning fellow chartered accountant, tax agent and podcast host. Check out Ali and Andrew's All Aussie Accounting Adventures, who founded All In Advisory in 2018. She has won the Boutique Firm and Startup Firm of the Year in Accountants Daily and Xero Cloud Champions of the Year. Ali has worked in the accounting industry for 30 years with big, small, traditional and innovative firms and everything in between, and has helped many of them work through their digital journeys. She knows challenges and opportunities that can present and likes her experience to bring positive change in our accounting and bookkeeping communities. Welcome, Ali. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Sabi Gill. He was appointed CEO of Dext in October 2022, brings more than 35 years' experience in the tech sector, spanning sales, operations, development, support and customer service. He spent his career supporting businesses of all sizes with technology that looks to unlock their potential, both at home and in international markets. Prior to Dext, Sabi was the CEO of Thomas International, which is a leading talent assessment and psychometric provider. Other past roles include a UK and Ireland Managing Director of Sage, in addition to senior executive leadership roles at Epicure, IGT, HP, CA Technologies, Oracle, PeopleSoft and Digital Equipment Corporation. Sabi is currently a member of UK Digital Economy Council with the Secretary of State and the Chair of Digital Leaders Advisory Board, which has over 180,000 members across the UK. Welcome, Sabi. So today we're going to be having a chat all about AI and digitisation, and I'm really quite interested to hear from the experience, as I said, not just from on the ground, what's happening in the small business community, in the advisory community, but also from the software developer's perspective and an international one. One of the reasons why this fascinates myself is, as CEO of Cosboa, we very proudly made some big inroads into CDR, consumer data rights. Now, anybody who runs a software company in Australia should have been shuddering in their boots about CDR and changes that were coming down the pipeline. It was a pretty scary time for software and for digitisation more broadly. But we dodged a bullet thanks to the hard work of the people of Cosboa and other business groups. So quite proud about that. But what is important about CDR is to understand what that means in the global tech space, what that means for software companies, and ultimately what it means for small business as well. So what we might get started with is a conversation about AI, because I know a lot of you are here to hear about the expertise that we've got from the experts that we've got in the room. And I guess the big concern here is, should we fear it or should we see it as an opportunity? Sabby, I might start with you because you've got a lot of experience not only operating AI in a software capacity but also knowing how it can possibly impact in legislation and regulation as well. So over to you, Sabby.
Great, thank you for, firstly, the invite. Look, I suppose the fundamental question you have to think about when you think about AI is, what will it do for you personally and for your business? A lot of people fear it because they don't understand it. Once you understand the potential of what it's really trying to do for you and your business, I think then you will really understand the benefits. And I think at the moment there's so much hype around it, and AI means a lot of things to different people. When you think about AI, it's been around for years. It's just been called different things. If anybody remembers when Amazon first came out, and Amazon started as a bookseller, right, an online bookseller, and the first couple of books that you ended up buying, every time you came back, it would start recommending things. It would tell you other books by the same author, other books on the same topic. And if you would think about what it was really doing, it was more around what some people would refer to as AI back then. And it's just evolved. And now all of a sudden, because of ChatGPT, because of BED, because of all of these different things that are sort of going on, and also if you go back even what happened during the US elections around fake news and everything else, a lot of that was around AI algorithms, and depending on what you searched, those things sort of came up. So they can be seen as a threat in those sort of examples. But you can also look at it from I'll take it from a DEX perspective. Everything that we've been doing over the last 10, 11 years has been using AI. It's really about extracting information, data, various formats, being able to extrapolate that data and do something with it. And for us, it's really about, what are the other tools, what are the other use cases where without AI, it's just going to be time consuming, it's going to be about taking longer to do certain things. And that's the reason why automation is the basis of AI more than it is anything else. It's really about automating tasks, activities, making information available. And if you don't embrace it, and we don't embrace the technology that goes along with it, there will be a situation where you will potentially miss out. Because you've got to assume that the person next to you, whether that's another practice or another business or another competitor, will embrace this. One of the challenges specifically for a software company is that we've got history, we've got legacy, we've got product that's been built over a 10-year period. New software developments and new entrants today can go straight to using AI tools in order to develop processes and systems. And that's a huge opportunity for them, but it also means that it's a huge threat to us. It's the same thing for businesses and practices, is if you don't look at enhancing or embracing it, you will potentially fall behind. So sometimes it's FOMO, right? It's the fear of missing out if you don't do it with all of the... But first thing is, you've got to understand it.
Sabby, you mentioned there a little bit about automation. Now, I think everybody in this room is very comfortable with that concept. We all understand how to make things faster, more efficient, utilise the data in front of us, read it faster, whether you're using a spreadsheet or you're using something a little bit more exceptional and more complex. Question for you, Ali, is the fact that AI, from what Sabby's described, is sort of a bit of an extension of automation, does that mean for the business and bookkeeper and accounting community we don't need to fear it, that we can just build on what we already know?
Yeah, look, it is, from my perspective, definitely an opportunity. So if I track back, 30 years, I was I started on a typewriter, I know. You know, and I see the evolvement of tech in our industry, and I saw internet come in, and then people were able to use it through the search engines, and then I've seen the cloud technologies, which was an absolute game changer, and even back then people feared it and all the security and everything else. So, and then, we've moved into that integration automation phase. For me, it is just that next step in the journey. It isn't something to fear, and if you do fear it, do your research. Go out and find education, sit on the webinars, listen to the panels. Like, it's more from a business perspective. How can I use this to help my team? We're in a resourcing crisis. How can I use this to help lift up my team? How can I help my clients? How can I harness this in my processes and my systems every single day? So definitely opportunistic. And there's different layers, right? So some people are early adopters. I'm an early adopter. I love it. I'll get into it. You'll deal with all the beta problems and all of those other things. And then there's going to be this period where AI is really coming into its own, where it's kind of like the Google came to the internet and then everybody started using it. ChatGPT is similar to that. It's around learning. How do I prompt? How do I use this product? It's going to become now not just the early adopters, but everybody will be able to use it. And it's the usability, I think, that's kind of coming in now, that everybody can actually start to use this product. You don't need to understand code and everything else. So I think that's what's coming, and I think that's what's exciting.
Ali, can I just ask you, what was the first thing you used in your practice ChatGPT for? What was the first thing you sort of experimented with?
So I use something called Otto.ai, which is like a transcription tool for meetings. Holy maloney. Like every time I use it, it blows my mind, right? And at the end of the meeting, it just transcribes, whatever, hello. But you'll ask it some questions like, what were the decisions made in the meeting? What outcomes, what actions do I need to take from this? Literally, verbatim, right, every single time. It blows my mind. I do a fist pump just like the H&R Block lady does, and I'm like, yes. When you find something that has the power, that uses this AI and changes and revolutionises how I hold a meeting, because now I'm not even focused on the transcription or what's going to happen with the actions. I know somebody's got that sorted. I'm completely and utterly focused on that person in the meeting and doing active listening. It's changed how I do advisory. That's powerful. It changes how you can do things.
Yeah, I can see that we can change how they do government if we just install that.
Layer AI over it.
Yeah, I reckon. Put that in a few stakeholder technical advisory group engagement meetings. Roger, I wanted to ask you about change management. So you have gone through a lot of changes in your career. You've developed entirely new industry. Change when you've gone into something different. How fearful? We all know that as bookkeepers and accountants that our clients can be a bit fearful of change management. So how do we get over that and move into a space where it's not something to be feared and we can use something like AI to help push through that change management blockage?
Yeah, good question. I mean, we have done a lot of businesses, but there's a common thread through all of the businesses, and it's very much the human element in those businesses. We were just chatting last week, and in Lightyear, everyone that we recruit from a sales and service sort of that position, we recruit from people who've got experience in hospitality, because that's what we know. It's like, if you can get through a year or two of doing hospitality and all of those shifts and talking to customers, like, come on, right? Talking to drunk customers, it's if you can get through that, you can talk to sober accountants, mostly. So, I mean, yes, we've done a lot of new businesses, but there's a common thread running through those businesses, and the common thread is the human element. We will never go into delivering your piece of fish on a little trolley. We'll never ask you to place an order on a screen. We want to have that look you in the eye, and this is what we do. So I think for accountants and bookkeepers, and even for tech companies, there's a human element to it. Change is generational, right? In Northern Ireland, we went through the Troubles, and that's 2 generations for change to actually take effect. But wherever you are in the world, most change happens through a generation. So I don't think there's an immediate impact for us here tomorrow, so long as you have a relationship with your client. If you don't have a relationship, that's a different thing. AI for me, I'm quite stubborn. I like to do things. Richard Francis, known for 10 years, and he's laughing at me here. But I like to do things in a certain way, right? I think for me, AI will make an impact to a lot of people's lives when AI learns how to teach you how to use AI, right? Because I know that ChatGPT and that app, that one there is out there. I don't use it, right? Because I'm so busy doing things that I don't have the time to actually learn how to do them. But if the learning is put in front of me, if the trust is there in what I'm being told, I think that's where AI will start making a real difference to these businesses. But I don't see an immediate concern for the number of clients that people in this room are going to have themselves. Negatively in the next period. I only see AI perhaps bringing you more clients. As to what it's like in 5 to 10 years, I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball.
And it's interesting what you were saying there about, AI teaching us. I think a lot of what the accounting and bookkeeping community do and the software community is teaching others, particularly those who are sort of floundering and not knowing what they need to do in terms of compliance. So there's an opportunity there to build on that trust that we already have with our clients, to continue to educate them about what's more efficient, what's going to save you time, what's going to save you money, and ultimately what's going to save you time maybe on your bookkeeping fees too, because we always want to help out. I want to talk a bit about data privacy. Now, there is quite a lot of changes afoot. The Australian government is having a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to concerns when Optus and Medibank drop their bundle. It apparently means that every single business out there has screwed up with their data. But there is changes coming, and one of those big changes most likely is that the provision for the $2 million turnover, extracting out small businesses from that, they're probably going to need to start looking at data privacy a little bit more. Sabi, let's start with you. What will be the impact, do you think, on advisors and clients if regulations tighten around data privacy? In reaction to the number and the severity of cyber attacks. You've seen this happen in the UK, you've had this change. What can we learn from what your experience has been?
Yeah, look, I think one of the biggest things we've learned is the fact that you've got to have data that's structured, because sometimes you've got data and you don't realise what you've got because of the amount of data that you end up extracting. So, again, it's similar process, which is, does everybody understand the data models and what data they're actually physically extracting? And then understanding all the rules and regs, and there are lots of them. Right? When you think about what we've got GDPR, you've got data sovereignty, activity, which makes it really difficult even in a cloud environment. And where does that information actually even get hosted? You've got protected characteristics of individuals and people when you think about things like DE&I and everything else. So for me, and I think what everybody can do in this room is really try and understand that you're working with providers that actually understand the rules, because then they will be able to almost do the heavy lifting for you. And then for you to be able to work with your clients and making them understand how that relates to their business. Without that understanding and having good suppliers who actually understand the rules and regs for you, I think it's almost going to put you in danger.
And you mentioned that danger because I, for example, I did one of those searches. Anybody done those searches where you see how many breaches have happened with your email address?
Yeah.
And I didn't recognise like 80% of the companies who had my data. And I was saying to myself, well, how do I know how much they have? And I've just sort of taken that approach that my 15 and 16-year-old daughters have, which is, well, they know everything about me anyway, who cares? So it's already, you feel like it's already out there. But if we see this regulation clamping down on small businesses, are you saying that they need to be aware which software companies along that data supply chain has what piece of information for all of their clients?
Well, I think if you get to a point where, because there's two ways of looking at this. There's the software companies that you interact with almost on a daily basis that you're reliant on. Absolutely, you need to understand what they're doing with your data and your clients' data. But we all know that any Google search that you end up doing very quickly with extensions, with information, with data, I'm sure you didn't intentionally put all your passwords out there, and there are so many things out there where people will just hack into it. And most of the time, 90% of data breaches that have happened, people still don't even know that have happened. And your data is potentially out there, and people don't come forward and say, well, actually, I've had a data breach, thought I'd better let you know. Normally, it's when they get caught out.
Right. Roger, over to you. I just want to ask you about GDPR. So we seem to be following GDPR in Australia. Is that a good thing? Should we continue to follow those processes? What impact does that have for software companies, for example?
Well, I think personally, whatever GDPR was going to be, we just wanted the same set of rules here, because there's nothing worse than having to deal with one set of rules in one jurisdiction and another set of rules in another, etc., etc. Like Australia, it's a big country, but we're a small pond. And if we're looking or wanting software vendors to come and introduce their product to Australia, they're not going to do it if they have to write bespoke rules and bespoke this and bespoke that.
Don't they already have to do that for GST and other regulations and payroll?
Well, yeah, but GST, it's like 10, and over there it's 20, right? It's like it's not that hard to recode, that. It's when things are like, the right to be forgotten, right? So the right to be forgotten just feels like you can say to someone, I want you to scrub all of my information from your database, but that's not what it was, right? You can ask that, but not if the reason that your information was gathered is necessary to continue to move forward. So, for instance, we like that is the GDPR rule, because if there was a right to be forgotten over here, can you imagine us having to write rules to scrub your data from an audit trail when what we have to do is provide an audit trail to the ATO, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever GDPR was, and GDPR had that's the big boots. It's 200 and something million, consumers in Europe. Let's just follow that. I'm happy to follow someone else's rules so long as we don't have to, keep writing rules for certain markets. This
is exactly the argument that the Tech Council makes when it comes to those, having the $2 million extraction of small businesses. If you exclude them, then they're not practicing on the same level playing field as everyone else. So everyone needs to be playing on the same level playing field so that innovation can, as you said, take off. The stuff you're writing here is the same as in the UK. Otherwise, will it mean that people are less likely to look at the Australian market because there's an extra hurdle?
Yes, I think so. To give you an example, South Australian government put out a tender 2 years ago for accounts payable, and we got through to the last stage of it, and we had to pull out because the South Australian government said that they wanted mobile approvals and they wanted email approvals of bills, but they couldn't allow for the data to go outside of Australia. And we can't control the mail server and where the mail goes and all of this sort of stuff. So yeah, there's certainly people coming over and not targeting Australian government bodies because of the archaic rules that they still operate by. But I'll give you another great example. When we were bought by Intuit back in 2014, this is the InvitBox, not InviteBox, InvitBox.
InvitBox.
Some of our technology was then going to be put into TurboTax, and some of our team in Australia was then putting our technology into the TurboTax stack in the US, but we were only allowed to view redacted customer data from US customers whilst on US soil. So anytime our guys wanted to do anything, we either had to go to the Australian embassy and access it, and apparently they were not keen on somebody sitting with a laptop in their waiting room, but we literally had to fly to Hawaii, land, do 2 hours of work whilst waiting for the plane to refuel and then come back. It was ridiculous. And those are the challenges that you have when there's one set of rules in one country and one set of rules in another, when we're actually working on global products and we're using global software as consumers. So yeah, it'll stop stuff arriving, it'll stop innovation. We just won't see things you see in other countries.
And we could miss out on new software developments that could be the next best thing to impact a certain industry, for instance, and then the rest of the world has it, but we don't. Yep. Ali, question for you. If the restrictions around small businesses, around accountants and bookkeepers are pretty tight at the moment with data.
Yep.
If you see those tightening, do you think that the accounting community will keep relying on the software providers to do the right thing? Or do you think there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be, we have to upskill the industry to understand what data privacy means in the accounting world?
It is a two-edged sword, and I think it is a bit of both, like you were saying. There's definitely an education component. As a business owner, you need to understand that you are holding a lot of client data that is very confidential, right? There's an enormous amount of data that we hold, and so your health and hygiene as a business owner needs to be super important. You've got to have your processes in place. You've got to make sure that you're changing your passwords, that we use Practice Protect, etc. But I do put a lot of reliance on the tech that I use because I don't have the skill set to protect that data in a cloud environment. So that's why I choose the people that I choose to work with in the cloud, because I know that they've got the skill, they've got the money to put behind it, and I'm putting my reliance on them as a small business owner to protect my business but also my clients. And there is also that education component about teaching clients around the security of their data, making sure that they have two-factor authentication. And I remember when Xero forced two-factor authentication, the clients went mental. And it's like, yeah, but we actually have to do this to protect you because I know you've got your post-it note with your password stuck on your computer. So it's all those little things. So it's kind of, there's pain points in data security, there's pain points in privacy, but you have to educate your clients to get past that, and you have to educate your team members to get past that. And I think there's the basic level of health and hygiene in every business that you must have. But then if you need more than that, that's where we go for the tech.
It goes back to what bookkeepers, accountants have always been the educators of the small business community.
100%.
I mean, I would write in policy documents advisors. I wasn't really saying advisors, I was just saying accountants and bookkeepers, really, because they're the ones who are at the front line and helping all the time, especially around cybersecurity. Sabby, just one more question about data. What do you see as sort of the major differences between data protection privacy laws in Europe and UK, which are now two different things, and Australia? Are we really far behind, and have we got some catching up to do, in your opinion?
No, I don't think you do. I think the regulations have more to do with the catch-up than businesses in general.
What? The government is slow?
I'm not sure if I should answer that. But okay. But I think that is the biggest challenge, right? Is that even, I'm part of the Digital Economy Council, and we have these regular conversations with the Secretary of State just about data and data sovereignty. I was involved in actually during the Brexit split and the negotiations. I was actually involved in the Australian agreement around tech and the usage of tech. And what does that mean from and you could see from the conversations, and I was a reviewer of the paperwork rather than involved in any of the discussions or conversations. But you could see just based on the number of iterations on just how much people who are responsible for trying to negotiate these things don't even understand what they're negotiating. They don't understand what data actually means, what tech actually means, and what the capabilities are. So I think that's the reason why they've set up things like these economy councils and that sort of stuff, so we can actually advise Parliament and everybody else on actually what does this stuff mean. And some people are, acknowledge the fact that there is a weakness in that, but you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised, on how many people say, we've got it, don't worry about it, and they still don't understand. So I think that's the challenge. So it has to be an acceptance from government that there is a problem, we want to go and address it. And if they don't feel that they're bringing in the right individuals to be able to help consult on it, then, and I think that is the biggest difference.
Yeah, and I should say a big shout out to ICB, CPA, and DSPANs, anybody who's a software provider in this room, and if you're not a member of DSPANs, you should be, because they really are speaking for your industry when it comes to things like data protection, privacy laws, and the impact not only on your industry but the end clients as well. That's it's an interesting thing, I think, particularly with the changes that you would have experienced through Brexit and all of those implications. It's an interesting discussion. Last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was something I'm quite passionate about, which is consumer data rights. It could have been absolutely disastrous for advisors and their clients, and luckily we dodged a bullet. But it's a good example how too much restriction can actually strangle innovation. From the perspective of those who really rely heavily on data to function, so like all the advisors in the room, obviously the software companies and their clients, what would happen if we did strangle innovation in that way? Roger, firstly to you, if we did start to see a tightening of restrictions around data and the flow of data which we've all come to rely on, what would that mean for the industry? How disastrous would that be?
Well, let's talk about from the hospitality perspective. So we have maybe 5 or 6 different systems here that talk to customers. There's an event system, there's your point of sale system, there's a CRM and all of that sort of stuff. And if we couldn't share information between those systems, and we still can't share it all because the systems just aren't connected in the way we need to be, we've no idea who you are, okay? There's going to be a person with your name and we've no idea if on another system that is indeed the same person, because you may have used a Gmail over there and another one over here. So I think from a hospitality perspective, there's a real benefit in us being able to know who you actually are as a person and have that data shared across systems, because it gives you a better experience. We're not going to, try and sell to you more. It's not really our thing, but the experience that you have as a consumer is going to be better if we can share the systems. If we take it into tech, personally with Lightyear, I don't think it's a big thing. Your data comes into Lightyear, we strip it off your bills. We've got some data belonging to your suppliers, obviously, because their data is on the bills. And we anonymize that data and basically look across. We can look across and see the real price of a box of limes moving through summer in real time, right? Is that really going to impact you? Is it going to benefit you? No, it's not, but it's really cool to talk about in this sort of environment. So I'm not too concerned that... I'm glad the rules didn't go the way they were going to go. I probably see more benefit right now in the hospitality business from the freeing up of that, and probably more impact if we weren't allowed to have that data shared across than we do in Lightyear at the moment. So, yeah.
Who, in your opinion, owns the data? So we're talking about a privacy issue. Who owns the data? Is it the person who generated it in the first place? Is it the bank? Is it the software provider? Who owns the data? Whose data is it?
Well, our T's and C's say it's your data, and we're talking to you, the business owner. So if a user sends in data, it still is your business owner's data. It's not ours. It's not the accountancy software. It's any data in our system is the business owner.
So it's where it was generated in the first place?
Not necessarily where it was generated, because you can have data generated that then sits within on a bill. For instance, you could send a request outside of Lightyear for someone to comment on a bill, and that audit trail and that communication with that external user resides on the bill. For us, that's not the user who added the notes outside of Lightyear. It's Joe Smith's plumbing. It's his data. So regardless of where the data is created, our view is if it's on one of your documents or in your system, it's yours, and do what you want with it.
So ironically, it does take a view that it is the consumer's data, and they have a right to that data. But then also whoever's using that data should be able to freely share it amongst software providers. Is that pretty standardised across the software providers we have in Australia? Does everyone take the same view, in your opinion?
I don't have a view on that. I'm just not close enough to even pretend that I know what you're asking there.
Okay. Sabby, over to you. I wanted to ask you about, from the perspective of internationally, I know that consumer data rights came out of this concept of open banking, which has been successfully implemented in the UK. And that's where the person who generates the data in the first place has ownership, and they can share it with whomever or whatever they like. Has that been a success? Have there been any problems that have come up as a result of CDR in the UK?
No, look, the open banking concept is actually something that's working really well. And the reason is because, in the UK, accountants and bookkeepers don't like to hold financial monetary amounts on behalf of clients, because everything that goes with it in relation to KYC, KYB, all of the rules and regs that you have to go through. Whereas what open banking really allows you to do is I can produce a payroll file send you the instruction, and then you actually go into your own bank account through a mobile device or anything else to then select which accounts you want that money paid out of. And as an accountant or bookkeeper, I'm totally protected in that I don't have to hold any of your bank details, any information that could potentially be fraudulent in any way, because I could change that number, or somebody in my own practice could change that number and you would never know. So from that perspective, it just controls and provides a different level of security that was ever in there. And that people have found extremely powerful because it's all about security.
And it's something that I know that they're rolling out around telecommunications and electricity as well to give people more power about that. Yeah. Ali, talking about what we've discussed overall today, we've looked at AI, we've looked at digitisation, automation. What do you think the future is for accountants and bookkeepers, considering all those changes that are happening?
Yeah, I did consult the crystal ball just before I came.
Good, thank you.
So if you can hold me to this in about 5 years, that'd be great. Yeah, look, we're not going to have jobs. Not at all. That's just the most utterly ridiculous thing I've ever heard. In fact, I think I heard that 10, 15 years ago. We are safe. We just need to become more relational. We need to be able to harness the technology wherever that's going to take us, try and get excited about it if we can, to resolve pain points in our industry, like the resourcing. But certainly it's going to be a bit more fluid. There's going to be a lot more data flowing through. We'll have more access to a lot more powerful tools. AI, just think of that like an expert sitting next to you. You're commanding them what you need, what you want. But I think our industry bodies are going to have a bit of a difficult time keeping up with all of the data, all of the rights, trying to manage us. Because there are some people that are just going to go, yeah, I'm going to use AI, I'm going to fuel that to power my business, and you'll most probably see the early adopters really just pushing out there, and maybe 3 or 5 years later everybody else kind of gets on the bag when they've got the usability factor there. So I definitely think AI will impact our industry. I think it will help us with the processes, with a lot of the automations that we're already utilising. It's just going to make us more powerful, but we need it in our industry because we're resource poor. So I actually think it's of benefit if we can't find the resources, if we can't get people in, let's use the tech that's available.
Roger, from your perspective, multi-businesses, multi-industries that you've worked in, what does the future look like for you for AccounTech?
I'm not particularly scared by it. Will it, in the industries that I'm in, like beer production, hospitality and fintech, beer production and hospitality, I don't think are going to be impacted too much. Fintech, I think there's opportunity in fintech. I'm not too concerned about more regulation, more rules. I think that just weeds out the bad operators, to be perfectly honest. I mean, 4 years ago we became ISO 27001 compliant, which was ridiculous because we were just launched, right? And we weren't going to go into payments anytime soon and all of that. But it's good practice. It breeds and distills a culture within your organisation that at the end of the day, you just can't be laissez-faire with people's data or share things and this, that and the other. So, I see opportunity. I don't have that crystal ball, so I have no idea where that opportunity is, but I'll get Sabi a couple of drinks and see what he tells me, and then I'll just follow him.
And lastly, Sabi, what do you see as the future of AccounTech?
Yeah, no, look, absolutely take the opportunity to harness it. Technology is something that is just going to evolve, right? It's not something that any one of us can really do anything about, except either accept it and move forward with it, or you could ignore it. And if you go and look at all of the organizations, Kodak, other global organizations that didn't take advantage of the tech, you become a bit of a dinosaur, and there's a huge opportunity. And I think those organizations that embrace it become leading tech organizations that take advantage of this will be those that benefit and grow a lot faster and a lot quicker than those people that don't.
Great way to sum us up. I'd like everybody please put your hands together for Sabi Gill from Dex, Roger Gregg from Lightyear, and of course Ali Garrett from All-in-One. My name has been Alexi Boyd. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you check out Small Biz Matters in the next couple of months when this will be broadcast, everyone. Thank you.
Keep up to date with the modern accounting technology landscape by subscribing to the Accounting Apps podcast, the Accounting Apps newsletter, and join the conversation happening in the Accounting Apps Mastermind community. I'm your host, Heather Smith, and I'm pretty easy to find on all social media platforms. I look forward to connecting with you.